Hello and welcome along to the TABtouch preview of AFL Round 15 action. David Shortte and Digby Beacham with you. Hello, Diggers.
Good morning, Shorty.
Nice to be catching up, and a rare moment of sunshine last week with 7. We'll take that and hopefully go a little better this week.
Yes, it was a low base that we were coming from, but we'll take 7 every day of the week in this very tough tipping round.
That is the truth. Let's have a look at the Friday night action at the MCG. Melbourne doing battle with Sydney. $2 for the D, Sydney $1.80. Line bet at 2.5 at the moment. It's a skinny one. Look, Sydney, I can't knock them. They've won 6 of their last 7. They're the form side of the competition. They came from a seemingly impossible position to get up and knock off the Bombers last week. Digby, self-belief's a pretty big part in football, and right now they've got plenty of it.
They have, Shorty, and look, they're probably still not at their best. You know, they've dodged a couple of bullets against Richmond and Essendon, but they surge and they come at you and they don't give you a lot of time to breathe. Melbourne, 6-day break, the loss of Garlett, Jack Viney's pretty sore. They still haven't got Watts, Hogan, Nathan Jones. I've settled on Sydney, but I think it'll be a cracker. I'm really looking forward to it, but Sydney just.
Yeah, I'm with you. Just a really good test of Melbourne's depth, and to be fair to them, they've come up trumps so far this season. Even when there's been adversity and players out, they've generally found a way. But just for me, the 6-day break, and that Sydney form at the moment is looking really strong. I'll stick with the red and whites, but I'm expecting it to be a cracker for Friday night footy. On to the Saturday action. Western Bulldogs play host to West Coast. $1.46 here for the Doggies. West Coast at $2.70. The line at 15.5.
I'm not sure you can trust either side, Shorty. Particularly West Coast in Melbourne, and the Bulldogs aren't at the level that we saw them when they won that flag last year. They showed signs of it last Saturday night against North Melbourne, but they only fell in by a point. On exposed form, I think you'd be foolish to tip West Coast in Melbourne. Admittedly, Etihad's their preferred venue away from Subiaco, but Bulldogs just, but with no confidence.
Yeah, look, I'll go with the Doggies here. I think West Coast, once again, without Jack Dale, without big man JK, Josh Kennedy up front, I just think he's a missing piece in that puzzle that they really need. Hearn now missing off halfback as well is a big loss. No Lacra. There's a lot of scoring power that we've seen the last 5 or 6 years. West Coast have relied heavily on that duo to score a lot of their goals, and what it has done is it's meant that guys from the back line have had to go and fill holes up forward. That's left holes in the back half. It just, when you start playing around with the pieces on the chessboard, sometimes it leaves you vulnerable. And I think that's just where West Coast are at the moment. I'll stick with the Doggies. They just did enough last week against the Kangas, who were second last on the table, so it's not exactly flattering form, but I think any win's a good win for the Doggies at the moment. Hopefully they can use that as a springboard heading into this particular fixture on Saturday. Move to the MCG, where Carlton play host to Adelaide. $3.60 the Blues, Adelaide $1.28. Line betting here set at 23.5.
Critical game for Adelaide, Shorty. They were really poor last Thursday night against Hawthorn. Carlton will do their best to inhibit them and really curtail their scoring power, and we know that Carlton can defend very well. No Tom Lynch for Adelaide. He's got a virus, so he misses. I've settled on the Crows, but they need to get on their bike and they need to win a game ugly, because they're unable to do so thus far.
Yeah, absolutely. That was a really disappointing loss last week from Adelaide, and at the $1.28, I can't chime into a price like that for a side coming off a loss like they had on their home patch last week. Granted, Carlton are still learning. They've got a lot of younger players, but we've seen at different stages this year that their best has been capable of troubling good sides. So it's a game I'm steering clear of from a betting perspective, but tipping Adelaide, and I'm expecting Carlton to be able to give them a run for their money. We move on to Metricon Stadium. Gold Coast playing host to North Melbourne. Gary Ablett's 300th. He missed, of course, last week. It looks like he's going to be there on Saturday in what is a big game for their football club. Home ground advantage. North Melbourne second last on the table. I don't think they've been that bad, to be honest. They went very close to the Bulldogs last week. I just think up at home, though, 300 for Gazza. Home ground advantage, that's enough to swing me the way of the Suns in this one. Diggs?
I'm with you, Shorty. I think if Ablett plays, and there is a little bit of conjecture whether he does or not, they win. He's a massive in. Ben Cunnington is a massive out for North Melbourne. He was outstanding in that last quarter against the Bulldogs. They're okay, North, but they've still got some gaps in their side, in their structure, and in courses of games. They just fade away. So Gold Coast at Metricon's a hard assignment normally. I know they got beat there a fortnight ago, but I'm happy to go with them, Shorty.
Yeah, I'm with you, Suns, for the pair of us there. GWS doing battle with Geelong at Spotless Stadium. Home ground advantage here for the Giants. They're $1.37. Geelong at $3.10. Line betting set at 19.5. Look, I find it hard to knock the Giants here. Geelong, they just fell in against Fremantle last week. The Giants, just at home in a game against a side they're likely to come up against in the finals, you just get the feeling that they're going to steel themselves and want to be ready for a Geelong side that'll be looking to make a statement on the road here. But I'm leaning towards the Giants to win this one, and relatively comfortably.
I'm actually with you, Shorty. Yeah, I know it's 1v3 and Geelong are travelling along okay. Selwood will be named. Now, whether he gets up, we won't know until probably 90 minutes before the game when they finalise their lineup. But I'm expecting the Giants to make a statement, and I think a physical statement early. And if you do that, and we do know, if you inhibit Dangerfield or Selwood, or one of them doesn't play or one is quiet, that rest of that Geelong midfield doesn't function anywhere near as well as it should. So GWS for mine.
Absolutely. On to the Adelaide Oval on Saturday night, where Port Adelaide play host to Richmond. $1.32 here for the Power. The Tigers at $3.35. Line betting set at 19.5 in this game. Home ground advantage for Port. Richmond, to be fair to them, they've had a very consistent year. Even the games they've lost, they've generally only been beaten late in games. The one blip on the radar was when they went to the Adelaide Oval and they were blown away by Adelaide. The Crows on that occasion were with them at quarter time, but in the last three quarters, Adelaide ran away with the game to win by a hefty margin. Port Adelaide and Adelaide, I don't think there's an awful lot between those two at their best at their home ground. So this is a good challenge for Richmond here. I think Port will win and win well. No knock on Richmond. As I said, they've been pretty consistent and reliable this year, but I think Port at home will hold all the aces in this one.
I agree, Shorty. I've settled on Port as well. Both sides defend particularly well. But I just think Paddy Ryder v Nankervis, that battle in the centre square, Ryder's jumping like a spring chicken, and Nankervis looks like he's just carrying a bit of a burden with that workload. It's his first full year as a number one ruckman, and he looks to be struggling. He's not covering the ground. We know that Ryder is doing that, so Port Adelaide for me.
Yeah, indeed. On to the Sunday fixtures. Essendon take on at Brisbane at Etihad Stadium on Sunday. $1.10 here, the Bombrays. $7 for Brisbane. The line set at 44.5. This looks a game where Essendon should get a hold of them. They're a side that can score heavily, quickly, Essendon, when they get on a run. Brisbane, I think, might struggle with the scoring power of the Bombers here, and I'm expecting Essendon to win it and win it really well.
I agree. I think no Dane Beams is a massive blow for Brisbane in that midfield, and what we have seen this season, Shorty, is Essendon lighting up sides inside Etihad Stadium. They're pretty lethal in there. This is an opportunity for the Bombers to really boost their percentage.
Yeah, the line's at 44.5. It could be a really big win.
Yeah.
Brisbane, they're still learning the caper. They've got a lot of younger guys. Sometimes when you can get a real gap on them, you can put a score on the board and win big. This might be one of those games. MCG on Sunday. Hawthorn take on Collingwood. $2.05 here. The Hawks fresh off that big win last week on the road. Collingwood $1.75. The line set at 3.5. Importantly in this game, there's a really good chance that Elliott returns for Collingwood. For mine, when he's in the side, they look a whole lot more dangerous.
Well, they do, but if you've got a coin, Shorty, I'll take it and I'll flip it, and I'll come to a tip. I've really struggled on this game. I've settled on Collingwood, but with no confidence. You're right, if Elliott plays, it's massive. It's Scott Pendlebury's 250th game, so hopefully that serves as some sort of motivation for the Magpies players, but oh dear, I don't know. Collingwood I think I've got them winning by about 2 or 3 points.
Yeah, well, we both landed on tails here because I've gone for Collingwood as well, Digby. But look, I think the key here is Hawthorn, if they can reproduce that effort from last week against Adelaide, they're going to take a stack of beating. But the one thing with Hawthorn this year, we've seen a fair bit of the old spike and then drop, spike, drop, and that worries me going into a game like this. Collingwood have been a little similar, to be fair. Their best has been good, their worst has been disappointing. I think if they kick straight though here, Collingwood, they'll get their chance. They've got a gun midfield, they should get plenty of supply up front. The key will be making sure they cash in on that. The final game is another really tricky one at Domain Stadium. It's another one where we can play two up here, Diggs, and see what we come up with. Fremantle $1.87, St Kilda $1.93. It's a skinny line set at 1.5. I found it really tough. Eventually landed on Fremantle, back at home, Nat Fyfe back in. I got the shock of my life last week, to be honest. I gave them none against Geelong with a real well undermanned team on the road. Not many sides get anywhere near Geelong at Simmons Stadium, and for Freo, they had a shot late in the game to actually win the match. So if Sonny Walters had been just a touch straighter, Freo get the 4 points and probably head into this game really buoyant. As it is, they were beaten, but I don't think they lost too many fans with that effort last week.
No, they did not. They were really good, and they needed a response, didn't they? Because their form leading into the bye had been horrid. When in doubt, tip the home side, and that's what I've done. I've settled on Fremantle Shorty again, not with a great degree of confidence. I just think home. I like the fact that Sandilands will be fresh, and also Fife. A week off, he's a big combative beast, and I think with a week just to freshen up and get rid of some of that soreness, that can be something of influence in this match. So St Kilda, they're in 8th spot. I don't expect that they'll be in the top 8 at the end of this round.
No, alrighty, so we're both going with Freo and a tough one to round it out. With our tips, well, incredibly, we've landed on the same darts again this week, Digby. Sydney to be too good for Melbourne, Western Bulldogs over West Coast, Adelaide over Carlton, Gold Coast in Gaz's 300th to take care of North Melbourne, GWS to beat Geelong, Port Adelaide at home over Richmond, Essendon to be too good for Brisbane, Collingwood over Hawthorn, and Fremantle over St Kilda. Let's get into your multi for this week, Diggs.
I've gone Western Bulldogs, GWS and Port Adelaide all to win, Shorty, at $2.64.
Not a bad play. Look, I've got the same first two, the Doggies as well as GWS, but I've gone with a pick your own line with Essendon to win by 34 or more. It's a little conservative, but I think that should have us covered there. I'd expect that they get on a run and win fairly well against Brisbane. That gets us to $2.98 this weekend. So the Doggies, the Giants and Essendon by 34 or more. Let's get into your novelty, Diggs.
I've gone to the wire-to-wire market, Shorty, and I've settled on the Western Bulldogs, GWS and Essendon to lead at every change and win, and that is paying $7.84. So I'm banking on some quick starts and some sustained form.
Alrighty, and for yours truly, look, I'm going with a novelty multi this weekend. Tom Lynch in that big game for Gold Coast up against North at home. I expect him to kick a bag. I'll take him to kick 3 or more. Bontempelli to get 25 or more disposals in their game against West Coast. And Jack Zeeble is a pretty talented player, and I think he can get 25 or more this weekend as well. That's paying $3.99 if all three of those things happen this weekend. Lynch 3+, Bontempelli 25+, and Zeeble 25+. Don't forget to watch out for the first goal scorer specials on selected games this weekend with TABtouch, and all the very best if you're having a punt this weekend. Be sure to do it with TABtouch. Digby, look forward to catching you again next week.
Pleasure, Shorty.
Bye, punters.